All right, let's dive into one of the most compelling characters out there, Cillian of the Hollow. But we're not just looking at his story, no. We're going to put him under a philosophical microscope, specifically through the lens of Nietzsche. We're going to trace his incredible journey from a medieval peasant into what you could call a modern and, frankly, terrifying Übermensch. So, right off the bat, this quote, this is everything you need to know about Cillian. This is his operating system. The world isn't some community to be nurtured, it's a machine full of levers and buttons to be pulled and pushed for his own gain. It's a predatory mindset, plain and simple, and that's exactly where we're going to start. So, here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll get into his core philosophy. Then, we'll follow his transformation using Nietzsche's idea of the three metamorphoses. After that, we'll look at his archery, what that really means. And finally, we'll see him arrive in the modern world as the full-blown Übermensch.
Okay, so to really get Cillian, you first have to understand these two big ideas from Nietzsche about morality. Because trust me, Cillian didn't just pick a side, he built his entire life on it.
And this is Cillian's code, right here. Master morality. It's not about good versus evil like we usually think about it. For Cillian, good is just what's strong, what's powerful, what makes him feel more alive. It's a yay-saying philosophy, which basically means saying a massive, resounding yes to your own power, your own will, your own desires, no matter what. And this is where it gets really interesting, because you see the huge clash that defines Cillian's entire existence. Over here, you've got the slave morality of the people he came from, what he calls the herd. He looks at their values, humility, kindness, pity, and he doesn't see strength, he sees weakness. He thinks it's just a clever trick the weak play on themselves, calling their inability to take what they want virtue. Cillian, he throws all of that out. For him, bad isn't immoral, it's just pathetic, it's weakness.
So, getting rid of that herd morality, that's just step one. Cillian's whole life, his journey across centuries, it's like a perfect real-world example of Nietzsche's three metamorphoses. It's this incredible allegory for how a spirit can evolve and find true freedom. It breaks down into three stages. First, you've got the camel, the one who carries all the weight. Then, the lion, who comes in to destroy the old rules. And finally, the child, the creator, who starts fresh. And believe me, Cillian lives out every single one of these roles to the letter. So let's start at the beginning. In his youth, Cillian is absolutely the camel. He kneels down, ready to be loaded up with the heaviest burdens imaginable. We're talking survival, foreign invasions, and, this is crucial, the absolutely brutal teachings of his mentor, who basically hammers into him that the only way to make it in this world is to be more ruthless than everyone else.
But then, the war changes everything. He sheds that camel skin and becomes the lion. This is where he learns to say the sacred no. A no to loyalty, to tradition, to everything he was told thou shalt do. He starts treating allies like pawns, taking out leaders. He's not just breaking the rules anymore, he is tearing up the entire rulebook to carve out his own freedom.
And that brings us to the final, and maybe most shocking transformation. When he's ripped out of his time and dropped into 1970s America, he becomes the child. Now you'd think he'd be lost, right? Mourning his old world? Not a chance. Instead, he says a sacred yes to all this new chaos. He sees it as a game, a totally blank canvas where he can finally create his own values, with no connection to the past whatsoever.
So, a new creator in a new world. How does he enforce his will? Well, the one thing that's been with him through it all, from camel to lion to child, is his bow. And his archery is so much more than just a skill. It is the perfect physical embodiment of Nietzsche's most famous idea, the will to power. Now, the will to power, it's this fundamental drive that Nietzsche believed is in everything. It's not just about power over other people. It's an inner drive to grow, to push against resistance, to constantly become stronger. And for Cillian, that bow is how he channels that drive. Yeah, think about it. Every time he practices, it's a ritual of self-overcoming. He's mastering himself, not just a target. When he draws that string back, he's operating beyond good and evil. The arrow isn't good or bad, it's just a tool to get what he wants. Even his treasure, that ancient gold and silver, it's not just wealth to him. It's concentrated will, raw power just waiting to be used for his own grand design. All from this solitary fortress he's built for himself. And this is where it all comes together. The whole journey culminates here. When Cillian lands in the 1970s, he doesn't just adapt, he becomes the living, breathing version of the Nietzschean ideal, the Übermensch, the overman.
You've probably heard Nietzsche's famous line, "God is dead." It was his way of saying that the old sources of morality and meaning were collapsing. Well, Cillian lives through this twice. First in the brutal anything-goes world of the 12th century, and then again in the 1970s, a time when America was reeling from scandal and war. For most people, a world without rules is terrifying. For Cillian, it's the ultimate opportunity.
It's amazing how his medieval mind just cuts right through the noise of the modern world. All this distrust in institutions, he doesn't see a problem. He sees an open door, a call to opportunity. He looks at giant corporations and just sees the new feudalism. Same system, different costumes. And mass media? To him, it's just technological magic, a way more powerful tool for controlling the herd than any king ever had. So what you see here is this kind of wild, inverted transformation. The point is, Cillian doesn't really have to change. The world just changes to become a better playground for someone like him. The chaos of war in his time, now it's economic crisis. The ruthless survival skills his mentor taught him, today that's just called corporate culture. And being a hated outsider, in the modern city, that's romanticized as being a lone wolf. And this evolution is just perfect. Back in the 12th century, he was the ghost of the woods, this feared outcast living on the fringes. But now, in the 20th century, he uses that same predatory logic to become a ghost in the machine, an invisible hand pulling the levers of power in our modern world. But here's the catch. Here's the tragic irony at the very heart of the Übermensch. He wins. He gets everything he wants. He becomes the ultimate predator, perfectly suited for any time, any place. But it's what they call a Pyrrhic victory. The very nature that lets him conquer the world is the same nature that guarantees he will always, always be completely alone. And that leaves us with a really unsettling question to chew on. When you look at our world today, with all its broken systems and blurry moral lines, is a predator like Cillian just some monster, an aberration? Or is he the logical conclusion of it all?